In today's episode, what we're speaking into is narcissism. And I really wanted to do a deep dive on this topic because it's just so pervasive in today's society and in today's culture, especially in the Western world, which is where I live. And I don't have a lot of experience with other cultures, but I know that especially in the Western world, and it is quite pervasive throughout the whole world to a degree, I know, is this, we can call it an epidemic of narcissism. You see it everywhere. You see it in all kinds of people. And so what I really wanted to do today is have a conversation about what is it? Where does it come from? Why is it happening? And what do we do with it, right? The reality of our world is that we live in a world that promotes narcissism, encourages narcissism. And from the time we're very little, we are in a lot of ways encouraged to become narcissistic. And I think there are pockets of this in all of our lives. And there are people who have gone to an extreme with it. And we could say they have become a narcissist, right? Where the narcissistic aspects of themselves have become the greater aspect of who they are. And this is something that, you know, when you're dating, it's kind of inevitable. I think, you know, you're gonna come across a narcissist or two in your dating journey. So what I really want to do today is just do a deep dive into this conversation of narcissism and hopefully shed some light and support everyone in understanding, in healing, and also empowering yourself. We could say the water you're swimming in is very toxic. You need to know how to be with that toxicity. You need to know how to position yourself within this toxic water that we're swimming in. And I think so many of us, when it comes to love, and this was me for a long time, is I was expecting a relationship to come into my life, but I wasn't really present to what a task that really was, right? Like I was expecting myself to find my person. I was expecting love to come into my life. I was expecting it all to happen for me, but I wasn't really present to the task that it actually is, to what really is required to receive and manifest authentic love into your life. And I truly believe that we cannot create that for ourselves. We cannot have that authentic, committed love without also addressing and knowing how to deal with the toxicity that is all around us all the time, right? We need to position ourselves as someone who is empowered within the toxicity. And if we don't position ourselves in that way, that those toxic influences that surround us will constantly and consistently drain us of our power, right? And so we need to know how to position ourselves within that and how to be empowered within this sea that we're all kind of swimming in here. And so dealing with the topic of narcissism, and I would say if I were going to categorize narcissism as something specific here, I would start by saying that what we call a narcissist, what we refer to, you know, when someone says my ex is a narcissist, or I experienced narcissistic abuse for 20 years, right? What a narcissist is, or what narcissism is it is the extreme manifestation of the toxicity that exists within all of us. It's something that is culturally present. It's something that we pick up in our upbringing. It's something that is promoted to us in the movies and the music and the media. It's something that is just so pervasive in our culture. And as human beings, we're in a really interesting position here where, you know, as human beings, we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. We are love. We are the universal essence of life, which is love. We are love that has forgotten what it is. You know, if you look at a child, it becomes very obvious like what we're made of, right? When you look at a child who hasn't developed a strong ego yet, developed these fear-based beliefs that cause it to want to control and manipulate the world, to have power over other people, to keep things for myself that you can't have, right? It's like these are all the things that we develop as we grow up. And the essence of love that is really present at the core of who we are is very, very obvious when you look at a child. But then as children, we're born into a world that is very much the opposite of love. And that's why I say as human beings, we are love that has forgotten what it is, right? We are made out of love, and we have forgotten what we are. We have forgotten where we come from. And so we come into this world as love, these beautiful children who laugh and play and sing and dance and cry, and they're just the full expression of life in every aspect of it. And then as we grow up in this toxic world, this world that does not honor the authenticity of a human being, this world that places your value on what you achieve versus who you are, this world that is constantly sending you the message that you are not enough, this world that is constantly sending you the message that if you want to be worthy, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And if you have a normal kind of regular life, you're nothing, right? And this celebrity culture where we put people on pedestals and we compare ourselves to them and find ourselves lacking in all of this, right? And I'm just giving a few examples here, but this is the world that we've been born into. And what happens for us is you can start to see when that 2-year-old child starts to develop their ego, right? And all of a sudden they say, no, I don't want to share my toy. This is my toy. You go get your own, right? And we can start to see how the ego develops even at a very young age, and how the ideas of scarcity and lack and needing to control and needing to keep something to myself to make myself feel safe even starts to show up in children at a very young age, because children are sponges and they pick up the impressions of the world around them. You can see very clearly how the ego develops and how children create these protective barriers around them. And by the time you're in middle school, or especially high school, and I mean, even earlier than that. I mean, I remember getting bullied in elementary school, and a lot of you probably did too, right? We are born into this toxic sea. And at a very early time in our lives, we start to feel that we need to survive in this toxic sea. And narcissism is the extreme of that. Narcissism is what happens when this need to survive in a toxic world is taken to the extreme. Narcissism is what happens when somebody cannot find any value in themselves authentically, right? They cannot recognize the gift that they are, the beauty that they are, the love that they are. When somebody becomes completely disconnected from that, what happens is their only way to continue to live, their only way to continue to wake up in the morning and be okay, is to create a grandiose image of themselves. The themes that really characterize narcissism are things like constantly wanting admiration and acknowledgement from other people, right? Always look at me, always tell me how great I am, always love me, always admire me. A lack of empathy, right? A lack of empathy where I don't have the ability to connect to someone else's experience on an emotional level. In fact, in narcissism, empathy is replaced with judgment, right? So where somebody who has an open, loving heart would see someone suffering and they would see someone's pain, and their open heart would feel that pain from that person. And there would be a natural tendency to empathize with what that person is going through and to feel what that person is feeling. Narcissism closes down the heart. It does not have access to that empathetic response that is very natural to a human being with an open heart. And that empathy is then replaced with judgment. And the reason, what judgment provides really to all of us, and this is why we judge, and we all judge in different ways. But in the narcissistic consciousness, what happens is the judgment creates a feeling of superiority, right? So if I see you suffering, and rather than empathizing with you, where in empathy, I can feel what you're feeling, I can see the sameness between us. I can see the likeness between us. I can see how your pain is very similar to the pain I've experienced. And I can feel that with you, right? Well, when I'm not open to feeling that within myself, what I do is I judge you for your pain. And I say you're weak or you're pathetic or you're whatever, right? But I place some kind of judgment on you around it. And that gives me a feeling of superiority. That gives me a feeling of being better than you. And this is what creates the grandiose self-image that narcissists are known for. This is what creates the entitlement that narcissists feel. There is no healing in judgment. There is no healing in judging someone as a narcissist. And when we do that, and what happens in the culture around narcissism is that we end up making these people wrong for who they are. We end up making these people like the devil, like the boogeyman, like the evil doers. And when we place judgment on that, what we are doing is we are sinking ourselves to that level, right? And when we place judgment on a narcissist, we are invoking the same mechanism that they use, and we are getting the same result that they get, which means we feel superior, we feel righteous, we feel entitled. And that is just as toxic as what they're doing. If we want to heal ourselves and other people, we have got to develop a deep capacity for empathy. We've got to develop a deep capacity to be able to recognize what someone else is going through and feel that with them, feel that for them. And something that a teacher of mine taught me a long time ago, and I've never forgotten this, and it's a fundamental part of everything I teach, is that it takes a victim to make a victim. There is not one single person on this planet who has hurt another human being who is not also in pain themselves. It has never happened, ever, right? There is not one single person in the history of human beings who go out and hurt someone else who are not also in pain themselves. Because the fact is that healed people, people who live with a full, loving, open heart, they're not out there hurting people. They are out there blessing the world. They are out there present to the pain that people are going through, present to the suffering that people are in. And rather than judging people for that, they are sending love towards it. They are doing what they can to serve. They are doing what they can to help. They are doing what they can to contribute. Because the thing is that healed people know what it is to suffer. Because healed people are the people who, rather than avoiding their own suffering, which is what most people do. And by the way, avoiding your own suffering is one of the clearest paths to narcissism, right? Like avoiding your own suffering, repressing your own suffering leads to narcissism. Healed people are the people who have learned to be with their own suffering, to love themselves through their suffering, to honor their suffering. And as a result of being able to be present to those deepest and most vulnerable aspects of themselves, they have developed the capacity to be empathetic to the suffering of others. And so when you see a narcissist, which even categorizing someone as a narcissist is a little bit dehumanizing. When you make someone a narcissist, when you call someone a narcissist, you are basically making them less than human when you do that. What would be a more accurate statement about who they really are, rather than your judgment on them because they hurt you or because they did something or said something that you don't like or you don't agree with, right? But what would be a more accurate statement for someone like that is that this is a deeply wounded human being that has reverted to narcissism as a way of protecting themselves from their own pain. Sending so much love to all of you. Thank you for being with me today, and see you all very soon. Lots of love and blessings. We'll talk then. Take care.